everyone, my name is Reggie and welcome to my channel. Today I am so happy to be sharing with you some feminist book recommendations. This recommendations video is coming to you in honor of Feminist Lit February, which is an annual reading project hosted by Jane over at It's Jane Lindsay, and obviously the goal is to read feminist works, and so I will be recommending some of my favorite feminist books that you could read this month if you're interested in joining. If you're new to my channel, I definitely recommend subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you get notified when I post new videos, which happens every week on this channel. I'm trying to diversify this list, so I've got some obvious reads, some ones that are very overtly being feminist. I have a classic, a book of poetry, I have a graphic novel, all kinds of fun stuff on here. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let's just get into it. We'll start off with some short pieces of nonfiction. These are both by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and these are We Should All Be Feminists in Dear Ajewele or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions or Less. Dear Ajewele is actually my favorite, but I think they're both wonderful beginner additions to feminism, or if just you want to read something, refresh, and have a good time reading a feminist work. These are quick and fun and fabulous. It will get you nodding your head and being like, heck yeah. Next up, we'll talk about Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It's a historical fiction that is set in World War II. We have a female pilot and her friend, and they are on a mission, and their plane goes down. One of them is captured by the Gestapo, and it's gut-wrenching to read about and see that experience play out. But what's great about this book is the friendship at the core of it, and it's beautiful and compelling, and like one of the best books ever. I really recommend it. I have a video review all about it. If you're interested in that, I'll link it in the eye or in the description bar. Next up, let's recommend a book of poetry. This isn't my favorite book of poetry ever, but I did enjoy it quite a bit, and it's definitely feminist and a good time and all that stuff, so perfect for this month. And that is The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one by Amanda Lovelace. So Amanda Lovelace does some modern poetry. She also did The Princess Saves Herself in this one. She's coming out with a mermaid one in March, I believe, but this one is definitely the most feminist of them. As you can imagine by its title, it's feminist in nature. Next up, we have one of my all-time favorites, and that is The Female of the Species by Minnie McGinnis. But what I love so much about this is, again, it's tackling feminist rage and female frustration. It talks about rape culture, and it's fantastic. Very open dialogue about the topic, and I really think this is a fantastic book. Definitely recommend it. Next up, let's talk about another nonfiction book, and this one is I Am Malala by, obviously, Malala Yousafzai. This is mostly the story of her being shot by the Taliban and how that affected her life and her education and her stance as like an empowering person. And she is fantastic and super inspiring and like my hero and idol and amazing. And I definitely recommend you read this book because I just love it so much, and it's so fantastic to hear her story and hear her voice and like see all that she is and all that she has done. It's just fantastic. I'm a big fan. Next up, let's talk about Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is one of my favorite books I've read. The story follows our main character Sadie, who is the caretaker, I would say, of her younger sister who is murdered. And so Sadie goes after the person she believed murdered her sister. And this story is told in a dual perspective. The first perspective is from Sadie as she's going off to murder the person who murdered her sister. And the second perspective is about a year later, and it's a podcast. And so it's just the podcast and it's script and stuff detailing Sadie's disappearance. So you quickly discover that Sadie has gone missing too, and we don't know what happened to her, and it's such a fantastic book. I definitely recommend it. I loved it so much. Next up, let's talk about that graphic novel I mentioned. This is Bandette. This is written by Paul Tobin and illustrated by Colin Coover, and I love this book so much. So Bandette is the story of a cute little French girl who is a superhero vigilante of sorts. So what's great about Bandette is she's a little thief, a little vigilante, but she doesn't just steal in like a bad way that makes her a villain. She steals like from other thieves who have stolen things. She provides these items back to like the museums or where they're stolen from. She is so pure and happy, and I love her so much. I think this is such a fun, quick, fabulous read. It's so underhyped. Please go read it. Next up, we have Moxie by Jennifer Matthew. This follows our main character Vivian, who is in high school and just seen some pretty crappy things going on and decides to do something about it. She starts an anonymous feminist zine or magazine and distributes it in the female bathrooms, and it's fantastic because this starts a movement across her school, and I just love seeing these girls come together. It's fantastic. Good time. definitely a little heavy-handedly written, but I mean, I think that's perfectly acceptable for its demographic, which I am not. Next up, we have the most recent addition to my list, and a book I adored, and it's The Bell Jar. So this is a book I just finished and just fell head over heels in love with. I love this book so much. So this details a woman's descent into insanity and her subsequent dealings in the mental institution that she lives in, but it really also tackles just her role as a woman that's trying to work, who doesn't necessarily want to be a mother, who's trying to find her place in the world. And it's so fantastic and feminist and lovely, and I just loved our main character so much. I was so fascinated by her and her thought process, and I found this book to be wonderfully profound and beautiful, and just I loved it so much. Definitely, if you're looking for a feminist classic, this is one to pick up. Last up on this list, we have The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This is similar to Moxie in that it's a group of girls who are in a school system that's just not doing them great things, and they decided to create a group that binds them together, and they try to fight back, and it's beautiful. The difference between Moxie and The Nowhere Girls, I'd say the Moxie is more rooted in like catcalling, sexist behavior, whereas The Nowhere Girls was inspired by a rape and the way men and boys in the school specifically sexually treat women. So very different in how these groups were formed, but similar concepts, different executions, both wonderful in their own right, both worth reading. I think every book on this list besides the Book of Poetry got 5 out of 5 stars from me, and that's just because poetry isn't necessarily my favorite thing, well, modern poetry at least. So these are all books I highly recommend. They're some of my all-time favorites, not just feminist in general, but favorites of all time. These wholeheartedly my favorite feminist books ever. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!